Hi everyone, in this lesson we're going to be looking at what mixtures are and what diffusion means. So this image on the cover page here is a little clue to what diffusion is. I'm sure everyone's seen something like this, so keep that in mind. Our key words for this lesson are diffusion, which we will go into, high concentration, low concentration, a concentration gradient, so that's like a slope, the word passive, which means without energy, and mixtures. Our learning objectives for this lesson are pretty straightforward. We need to define the term diffusion, explain how diffusion works, and be able to distinguish or tell the difference between a pure substance and a mixture. So to start off with, we're going to be looking at diffusion. So these cartoon images will help us to do that. So unfortunately, we're not able to discuss with each other, but I'd like you to reflect on this as we go through the lesson. The first image over here represents a beaker of water with some purple crystals at the bottom. So these crystals are made up of a chemical called potassium manganate. Now you don't really need to know that, we just need to know that it's a really dark purple crystal. When we leave that crystal at the bottom of that beaker of water over time, what we find happening is that purple dye spreads throughout the beaker. Now what you can see in this third image, in this graph here, is that the concentration of that purple color, so the darkest area of that purple color, according to our graph, is at position A. And that's what we can see here. So this tells us that we have the most purple dye crystals at point A. And this is up here. As we progress to point B, C, and D, we can see that the color isn't as strong, and therefore we got this nice gradient effect from really dark purple through to paler and paler purple, almost getting to pink. And you can see that the gradient of our graph is going down the way. Those of you that are mathematically minded would know that this is a negative gradient, but we just need to know that the slope is going down from a high concentration, so that's high up the top, to low down the bottom. So when we are looking at diffusion, what they are, and this is a really good explanation of how that works, we know that these dye crystals are moving away from that really high concentration to where there isn't any dye. So that's a low concentration. Okay, now this process, you can just leave that beaker on its own and this process will happen. So it's described as a passive movement because no energy is required to make this process work. Okay, so what we are saying is that these particles in the liquid move from an area of high concentration to an area of lower concentration, and they do this passively, and that means without any energy being added. That is what diffusion is. Okay, so we are going to just look at this again. So I've got a little image here, a little GIF to show you how that works. So if we look at the dyes in the red and the green here, we can see those liquids moving, and they're moving to areas where there is no dye. So they are passively moving from a high dye concentration to a lower dye concentration. So the definition of diffusion is the process where particles or molecules of different types merge because the kinetic energy is random. So what we're saying is these particles are all bumping into each other and moving in different random directions. So if you can imagine a group of marbles and you bump them all together. You don't know which direction they're going to ricochet in, so that's a random motion. What's really important to understand is that diffusion only occurs in liquids and gases. All right? That's really important that we understand that diffusion does not happen in solids. So diffusion is the movement of molecules or particles from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration down a concentration gradient until the particles are evenly spread out. So this is an important definition. So this is your first learning objective, to describe what diffusion is. Okay, so now we're going to explain why diffusion only occurs in liquids and gases. So if we look at our cartoons representing particles in the different states of matter, we can see that solids have a regular arrangement. Each particle is touching the neighbouring particles, and they are in this uniform shape that they never change from. We know that solids only vibrate on the spot, and this is because they do not have very much kinetic energy, so therefore they cannot move apart and flow over each other. If we look at liquids here, the arrangement of particles in a liquid are irregular, which means they don't have any fixed pattern or shape. And because they can move, but not as fast as gases, their energy level is described as being medium. And the movement is that they will roll over and around each other. So these particles can move, and because they can move, diffusion can occur. With gases, again, this is a definite irregular arrangement of particles. They have a lot of kinetic energy. Gases have the highest kinetic energy, which means that they can freely move around in the container that they're in. So these particles move quickly, they'll bump into each other, they have random motion. So what we need to know is that liquids and gases, these are the only two states of matter where diffusion can occur, and it's because of their irregular arrangement of particles, their higher levels of kinetic energy, and the ability of the particles to move. Okay. What I'd like you to do now is to click on the video or the link here and watch this brief 2.5-minute video about diffusion of gases. Okay, I hope that video was helpful in describing diffusion. Before we go on to look at mixtures, you might want to pause the video again and complete the question at the bottom of page 10. So that asks you which state of matter will diffuse more quickly, and explain why. Have a go at that, and then we'll go on to talk about mixtures. Okay, so mixtures. Now we're going to be looking at them. A mixture in chemistry is when two or more substances mix with each other, which results in a mixture. Now, crucially, a mixture does not lose its individuality when mixed, and these two different things, or three different things, whatever it is, they do not combine chemically. That means they can be easily separated. So for example, if you have a bag of M&Ms or Smarties or any other lollies and you mix them up in a big bag, it's quite easy to separate them out according to their brand or their color or shape or however you want to do it. So mixtures, again, these are the product of blending or mixing, but we do not form a new substance. We can easily separate these different constituents back out. So if we look at these common examples here, these are all examples of mixtures. So we have a sport drink, so that contains water, sugars and salts, and we can separate them out. We have sand, which is made up of lots of tiny particles. We have fizzy drinks, which are made up of gases, which gives them their fizz, water, food colorings, and lots of sugar. We've got cereal, different color crayons, we've got popcorn of different flavors and colors, hot chocolate, and air, and we also have 2 or 3 different types of chemical that are mixed up with soil to make well fertilized soil. Now, with all of these things, we can separate out the mixtures by doing different techniques. So with our 3 liquids here, we could boil the mixture to get rid of the water, and then we could separate the solids. We could filter to separate the solid parts in our cereal and get out the milk. If we had something metallic and non-metallic, we could use magnets to separate them. Now, even though some of these things may look like they're hard to separate out from each other, it can be done, so therefore it is just a mixture. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is look at these 2 diagrams, these 2 cartoons of particles. Now these ones are joined together, so the blue and the yellow are joined together here, whereas they are not joined together in this picture. Which one do you think is a mixture, and which one do you think is a pure substance? Have a think about it, pause the video, and then unpause it when you have an answer. Okay, so hopefully you've got an answer, and hopefully you realize that this first image is a pure substance, because there is only one thing, one type of particle present, and this is regarded as one thing because they are chemically joined together, and there's only these particles in this picture. Whereas these separate blue and yellow particles, they are mixed together and we can separate them easily, so this is a mixture. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to complete page 10, so that's a typo, it should be page 10 of your class booklet. You should now have been able to complete pages 5 to 10 of your booklet up to and including this lesson. So once you have done that, please check your work. I'll post the answers for you, and I'd like you to review your learning objectives for this topic. The next slide, we have a video that goes through what mixtures are. If you play that from 4 minutes, that will help those of you that are more visual auditory learners. That's another explanation that you can watch. Okay, that's the end of this lesson. Thanks for watching, guys.